talk a little bit about why we suffer and what that does for us?
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a reason.
Oh, there is, a very profound one. And it offers many, many gifts. Let's first talk about suffering itself, and then we can qualify it and expand. Suffering, and I'll use a synonym, pain. All suffering, all pain is resistance to God. Period. Where there is surrender, there is no pain, regardless of circumstance. That's just a universal isness. It is also true that all suffering is caused by desire. Desire is the great disease of the human spirit, and all desire is born of separateness, because when you have that full knowingness that I am of God, God loves me, and God only lives to serve and give me all that I need. And one step further, I have all that I need in every moment, because it would not serve God to put me here and not provide what I need. So when that knowingness is there, there is a surrender. And where there is a surrender, there is no pain. It doesn't mean there are not difficult circumstances. But as the levels of desire decrease, levels of surrender increase, so do levels of detachment, because life sends you circumstances that test to see how detached you are. Can such and such come your way, and you can be in your circumstance but not defined by it? And does that mean you wouldn't feel sadness? No. I mean, you're human. Does that mean you wouldn't feel anger? No, not necessarily. You might have moments of anger. But again, when you focus on the all ever-present universal principles of love, you realize that those are temporary circumstances. Only love is real. Everything else is temporary, is ephemeral, is just not everlasting. So therefore it should be treated as such. But people, because of fear, because remember I said human beings by and large live in fear, they believe only what they can see, hear, feel, touch, through the 5 primary senses. Now, why does it exist? Well, I started getting into part of its blessing is to teach you detachment, to know that only love is real. While a body might experience pain and suffering, the soul is never harmed, ever. Your soul is God. It's pure love. It cannot be harmed. Pure love can never be harmed. It can only be embellished. So when you know that the soul is never harmed, number one, and that all circumstances are temporary, the only thing that is everlasting is the truth of your soul as love. And number two, a point I haven't said yet, is that there are certain lessons and initiations that people have to have. Their soul, even before being born, wanted them, needed them, chose them, and created them in concert with God and the Lords of Karma and all their masters and the whole symphony and everyone on earth. So they're having experiences they need to have. But then people say, well, that's just being cold and callous. No, it's being detached and it's unconditional love. Unconditional love means there's no condition that inspires me to not love someone. And if someone needs, wants, and chooses to suffer or have certain circumstances, I can have great compassion, and I do. And I can cry real tears, and I do. And I can give money and give my services to help them, though being ever listening in my heart to not be robbing them of lessons. You see, most people, because of their fear and their attachments, their modus operandi is make it go away, make it go away, make it go away. But why be like this? You're asking for an experience, and then you see, let's say you see a brother or a sister suffering with cancer, and people start praying, make it go away, but they need the cancer. So if you want to pray, why don't you pray they get the lesson? Pray they awaken into the truth of why they created it and what it's gifting them and blessing them. Because the quicker you get the lesson and integrate the divine realizations, the higher levels of truth of who you are, the shorter the circumstance needs to stay in your life. Every circumstance stays in your life until it has fulfilled and achieved every purpose and reason for which you called it forth. So if you want to pray for people, many people pray out of fear, and while all prayer is helpful and if it's loving, I mean, there are higher levels of prayer, just like higher levels of consciousness. So to pray, make it go away, you're just praying out of your own fear and your own resistance and attachments and desires. I tell people to pray to send legions of angels to people. Send, if you know who their masters and teachers are, send their souls around them. Pray for awakening and peace and understanding, deeper integration of understanding and self-love and acceptance. Or just pray as in sending them thoughts of how much you love them and accept the perfection of the situation and and send compassion. Compassion, I feel for you and with you because we're one. Your pain is my pain, and I feel that. So why is there suffering? That's one of the blessings of what suffering is. It helps people learn about detachment, and the primary thing, and this is why God allows it. People say, if there's a God and God is love, why would God allow these horrors to happen? Number one, because God knows they're not real. There's a little divine leela, divine play playing out here for us, and I don't mean to demean it. I mean, believe me, I'm not talking high and mighty. I lost my own son 4 months ago. He committed suicide. So, I'm not exempt from life experiences. And I found his horrifically ravaged body behind my house. So I know human experience. I'm not talking on a golden chariot here. Suffering wears down resistance to God, resistance to love. And that's basically the human experience throughout the duration of an incarnation. It is human nature to suffer. When I say nature, I don't mean divine nature. When I say human, I mean human choice. When given the choice between the path of grace and the path of suffering, 99.9999999% of humans will almost every single time consciously, willingly, happily choose the path of suffering, even though yell and argue to the last breath that that's the last thing they want. But when given the choice, they'll always choose suffering. And therefore, God allows, because most people live in fear of God, fear of love. I use God and love synonymously. Most people choose to believe that they live in exile from God, choose to not trust God, choose to be angry at God, choose to blame God. Therefore, when offered the path of grace, which is the path of God, they will not choose that. They will choose to suffer, to prove that they're right, to spite God, and therefore that suffering bears a gift in that the pain of that wears down that resistance. Why not just surrender? Put down the weapons and just surrender. Where there's surrender, there's no pain, regardless of circumstances. So, that's how it explains. There are stories from the Middle Ages of saints who were burned at the stake, who were singing while their flesh was burning over spit. It hurt, but because of their state of surrender, the current of God that came through them is what defined them. And they were in states of bliss, even while they could concurrently feel the scorching flesh. The power of God's love overlit them and transcended the pain they were also experiencing. So why does God allow suffering? Because suffering is a wayward humanity's incentive to turn toward God. Mother Earth is the physical manifestation or incarnation of God. We see her as Divine Mother, but you have God in spirit and God in form, as above, so below. So if you see Earth as the incarnation of God, the physical essence of God, there's this relationship that we have, since we are created symbiotically with the Earth. The Earth's made of 75% water. We're made of 75% water. The Earth, trees, breathe oxygen. We need oxygen. We exhale carbon dioxide. They need carbon dioxide. So we are symbiotically created by, with, and one with the Earth. So in essence, we are the Earth. We're just like the rocks that sit on it and the trees that grow on it. People only think they're separate from the Earth, which is one of the reasons why people have abused it so much. They think it's an object they can possess and belong and own, but they don't realize that every harm you bring to the Earth, you bring to yourself, because you are the Earth. So that's part of the second part of your question. How do we bring that balance? Is first recognizing I am the tree. If I cut down all my trees, I have no more air, so I die. If I pollute the seas, I have no water, I have no rain, it's just you have to get to the knowingness that everything I do to the earth, I'm doing to me. It's just we're all one. The same way as we're all one with people, we're all one with the earth. So, but I was going to go to the beginning of why is that happening? It's a question that's pressing on everyone's mind about the global warming. Remember how I said, first of all, a fundamental principle is the universe is always in balance at every moment. And God also gives us free will, which is the power, the God-gifted and given power to use the power of God any way we want. The caveat is that it was implied that we were supposed to ask God how to use that gift, not take the money and run. Thanks for the bag of gold, God. I'll call you when I need you. So, but somehow that got left out of the equation. Oh, I can do what I want. But my question is, well, why would you want to? That's what caused all the problems in the first place. Why not ask what God wants you to do, what the gift God gave you? So, and that I was talking a little bit about that before, about the pursuit of enlightenment. I don't know if that was on camera or off camera. That might have been at lunch. Many people pursue enlightenments so that they can then get what they want. Oh, then once I'm liberated, I don't have to answer to anyone. No one can control me, and I can do whatever I want. Well, a master is a servant. Once you're liberated, your whole existence is only in service for eternity, even beyond your lifetime. So if people are pursuing enlightenment to get what they want, they need to change jobs, change vocations. So why is, back to the why of global warming. We have this inverse relationship with the planet, as I showed, with the air and the water and the breathing and the exhaling and all of that. So, and as Earth also is the incarnation of God, dear Gaia, she gives us this permission, this free will is like what I describe it as an operating continuum within the full spectrum of God's will. It's a bit of an illusion. People like to, placate themselves and think, oh, I've got free will, but it's really not what people think it is. If you've ever been to an amusement park and seen this children's ride, the old Model Ts, you ever see that? You put the little 5-year-olds in and they get behind the wheel. It's a real full-size car, and they're driving and they're turning the wheel and they think they're doing so well and they're having so much fun. I'm driving a car, I'm in such ecstasy. And if you look underneath the car, there's a metal rail that goes down the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So the child is driving, but it can only go this far to the left or this far to the right until the rails hold it. That's free will. It's an operating continuum that we're gifted, just to placate us, wayward children finding their way home, to think they're in charge, think you're in control. But eventually you realize, oh, wait a minute. Life would be a lot more fun if we could just stop this little dog and pony show and just play the big game. Let's get rid of the track. Let's surrender, and we can take the governor off here, and I can really see where the magic happens. So, Mother Earth, as God, is merely tolerating humanity's burgeoning consciousness into divinity. The Earth could shake the entire human race off her back in a split second. One asteroid whack could extinguish the entire human race. One massive ice age could extinguish the whole human race. Two countries just getting a little too hot under the collar, hitting a few too many red buttons. It would only take 3 or 4 nuclear bombs to knock the planet right off its axis and create enough radiation to perhaps extinguish the whole planet, maybe a handful more, but there's certainly less than 10. And there were hundreds, if not thousands, of nuclear bombs already stored, built, ready to go with all the buttons in place. So any of that could happen at any time. But Mother Earth, as God, is tolerating this wayward child, this collective consciousness of children finding their way. At the same time, because the universe has to stay in a certain balance through this whole ascension process, humans have this choice to make loving or non-loving choices. And the more people choose in the way of love, the less God, as the earth, has to do on our behalf. The less people choose, the more she has to enter on our behalf to achieve balance. So people want to keep cutting down the rainforests and polluting the oceans and scraping all the fish and coral off and leaving all the seas barren and doing all the other things. We don't need to list them all. I think everybody knows them now. The more she will have to do to correct and achieve balance. And say, no, wait a minute, you're just a little out of line here. So as more people keep awakening and doing all the wonderful projects they're doing as they're happening, it's just like this. It's just an amazing, just like a scale. Humanity does more love and Earth has to do less on our behalf. Humanity does less, the Earth has to do more, just to maintain that balance like this, which is also ascending. As I said, everything is always ascending into greater love. It's a very simple thing. I saw in this interesting documentary the other day, The 11th Hour, Leonardo DiCaprio just produced and put out. One of the scientists said, it's funny, we're always talking about saving the Earth. And he said, the Earth's not in trouble. We need to save ourselves. No matter how much human beings do on the planet, and this happens to be true, no matter how much and how bad human beings' actions are, the Earth will live. The human race might be extinct, but the Earth is not going to die. She can't. She's immortal. She's God. The Earth and God are one and the same. So it was really fascinating to spin the tables and say people need to focus on fixing the distortions in their own mind and getting anchored back into love and grace and honoring the Earth, knowing that we're actually, as I said, we are the Earth. So a little bit about global warming and suffering. When you're in the full experience, knowingness, isness, which people call realization, though even many people think realization means intellect, but realization means realized as in you are living as it. You are living it, self, the isness of it. That there is the knowingness, the isness in every cell of my being, that I and my Creator are one, that I am not separate, never was, and never will be again. That I'm created in God's image and I am all that God is, I am. And I also describe enlightenment as the dissolution of the self. Every cell that is occupied by the self is one less cell that can be occupied by God. So all within us that is selfish, and I mean that in the highest sense, focused on the self, wants, needs, desires, or let's say wants and desires, that's all focused on the self, which is empirically selfish. So every cell that is occupied by the self is one less cell that can be occupied by God. Therefore, the dissolution of the self, when you are living in selflessness, if there's no separate self living and running you, then all that can be running you is God, which is your original creation essence. I also describe it in a way of saying that I use this expression like the 50-yard line. Ones who are living in the experience of separation from God, in the realm of duality or separation, more than 50% of their consciousness is fear-based. This is the easiest way I can describe liberation, and the most clear, which means because the critical mass of an individual's consciousness is anchored and rooted in fear, there is a gravity of fear that holds one in fear. Now, even ones who are living in that experience can have moments of bliss, very extended, if they receive darshan or shaktipat or have an epiphany or have an encounter with a being, or even just in the dream time or in meditation or through sacred breathing, or all the many ways they happen. People can have moments of bliss, moments of that, what people call the oneness. I was everything. I knew everything. I was God. And at some point, it's going to end, because the critical mass of that person's consciousness is fear-based. And the gravity called fear pulls that person back in, and they're in fear again, even though they may not think it or call it fear. One who is liberated, the critical mass, anywhere from 50 plus decimal point up to 100%, that life, that consciousness on earth is anchored in unconditional love. Now, this is what's interesting. Enlightened people can still get angry, still have fears, can still have initiations, and do. However, because they've crossed this critical mass, like the 100th monkey principle within their own consciousness, they're anchored in love. So even independent of anything they do, That consciousness of love is the gravity that now binds them in their incarnation and will pull them back out of it. And of course, whatever facilities and skills they use make it happen more gracefully, more quickly, more easily. But even if they did nothing, they'd be pulled back into it because they've crossed that line. The gravity that holds them on earth now is now love-based, whereas one who has not liberated itself, the gravity which holds it and binds it in its human form on earth is fear-based. And that's why when people have those bliss experiences, they often get angry or devastated when it ends. Because they say, oh, well, why did that happen? Well, because you haven't saturated your consciousness with enough of that. You keep having more and more of those and keep becoming very, very devoted and have very exacting discipline and practice with the different things you can learn. And there are many, many tools, given by many, many different people. The more you practice that, you'll have more and more of those experiences. They'll last longer, and then you'll have the troughs will become shallower, and the distance between the crests of the wave will become shorter, and eventually you reach that point. And then beyond that, as I said, it keeps going. You keep constantly looking to become greater and greater love and seeing how I can keep cutting that distance, and being more and more love in all that I can be.
You said that there are tools that that various masters teach to lessen fear, increase love. And I was wondering if you could just share a few that you teach.
All right, I'd be happy to. I've actually already spoken several. I just didn't isolate them and say, oh, that's a tool, that's a tool. Number one, knowing that all circumstance is temporary and everything on this earth plane is illusion, only love is real. Knowing in every cell of your being there is no such thing as death. There is none. We're eternal. Even scientists have known and proved that. I believe it was Einstein who said that everything is energy, and energy can never be destroyed, it can only change shape. Well, that applies to humans too. We're energy. Molecules moving, we're made of molecules moving. So there is no such thing as death. And then there are other spiritual practices. Those are concepts that help to know and understand those concepts, helps liberate a soul from suffering and from fear. And then there are spiritual practices you can do, actual technical tools like, for instance, meditation. Very important to find a sacred center, and there are many, many types and styles of meditation. But, it's basically quieting the mind, finding that small, still place in the silence, go within, and just and be with yourself, and connect with that, feel and listen for that, or allow that presence of God that lives within each and every one of us to presence itself, and just take hold and rinse and wash and cleanse. Breathe into it. There are grounding exercises on the earth, lying on the earth, taking walks in nature. The humans are called the highest, most evolved species, but it's pretty much the only kingdom that lives out of harmony with divine laws. So when you go in nature, even people who live in great cosmopolitan cities like this, there's almost no one on the planet who doesn't have some capacity to get in nature. Even if you live in an inner city, go into a park. Just go sit again, put your back against a tree. Go lie down in the grass. Go have communion with an animal. Nature lives in harmony with universal laws. Most of humanity does not. Lives in opposition and at war with universal laws. So when you get in communion with nature, you get into harmony with God, and then you find peace. Peace washes over you. And you can give all your anger and sadness and grief, just give it into the earth. Give it to the trees, give it to the sea, go in the ocean. Many people want to suppress their feelings. They think, oh, that's not loving, that's not Christ-like, that's not godly to be angry. There's nothing wrong with being angry. Being angry is very healthy if that's what you need to experience at that moment. What's not good about it is putting that on another human being or on any creature, plant, animal, mineral, the earth. That's your refuse that you need to get rid of. Just like you defecate, you flush the toilet. You use a product, you throw the trash out. That's trash, that's poison in your body. It's refuse that only you are responsible to get rid of appropriately. And there are appropriate means. You can write it all out. One of the tools I teach people is to, every morning, first thing when you get up, you just write out, I call it the 4 lower bodies clearing technique. You just let your hand take the pen and be a stream of consciousness. No editing, judging, or censoring. And it doesn't matter if the language is foul, if it's illogical, it doesn't matter. It's a healing technique. It's different than projecting your anger on someone, because now you're doing it with a higher purpose. Remember, intention is everything. Intention is 90% of creation. Action is only 10%. So if your intention is, I need to get this poison out of me, you've now made it a sacred shamanic event. And you just let the pen write everything, your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual body. All the pains in your body, diseases, ailments, your emotions, anger, fear, whatever, your negative thoughts and negativity in your spiritual body. Where am I going? Who am I? I can't stand this. This isn't working. Blah, blah, blah. All your doubts and skepticisms about God, your journey, who you are. Just write and write, or let the pen write until there's nothing left. When I started this technique, when the masters taught me this in the mystery school many, many years ago, my first ones were 25 to 30 pages long. And if I have to get up 2 hours earlier in the morning, because like I said, I had to wait tables, I had to go to day jobs too. I was not just, didn't roll in off the mountain here. I went the same walk everyone else does. So if it's important enough, you'll do it. So that's another universal principle. Everyone finds time and money to do what is most important to them. I've seen people on welfare driving Cadillacs and wearing fur coats and taking cruises. Their kids may not have clothes and they may eat garbage for food. You know, I've seen the reverse. I've seen people who have no money, not a cent to their names, show up at retreats that cost thousands of dollars. Because they know in every cell of my being, I have to have that. I have to have that, and it just comes. So whatever is your first and highest point of focus, because in essence you're a God, you're a creator, whatever you place your focus on, you become. So it's really not, can I, or is God going to? It's really, you really need to get honest with yourselves. What do you want? If you really want it that bad, you'll get it. And you should qualify the want by, does that it serves my highest good? Because as I said, desire is the cause of all suffering. It's really, you need to qualify that. Always put in that disclaimer of, God, if this is for my highest good, or I claim this to further my highest good, and then call forth that which you know serves your highest good. So that writing and burning technique, you write till it runs out, and then you offer it up to God, and you burn it. Put it in I have a little steel pail, and people just throw it in and burn it, or in your fireplace, or in your fire ring, wherever it is. Another one, I'll tell people if they have a lot of stuff coming up in them, whether it's anger or anxiety, whatever it is, go out and get physical. Go out rollerblading, go for a jog, go do something physical to, remember I said energy can't be destroyed, you can only change its shape. So you're transmuting the non-loving vibration into something positive or loving. So if I had someone, this is back years ago, that I felt this anger come up, of course it's a projection because there's nothing outside of self. I'm the only one on the planet. You're all the 7 billion aspects of me from which I'm learning to integrate my own divinity. So, but while ones are still in victim consciousness, I'm so mad at you, you did this, I also know that that's not true because there's no one there, so how can I be mad at you? If you truly integrate and understand that you're the only one on the planet and they're the reflections of you, then there's no one to be mad at. But I still have the anger, so therefore I need to go get rid of it. I've just ruled out blaming someone who doesn't exist, and now I need to get rid of it. So I'll go out for a rollerblade, and I'll put that person's head, on the thing, and just, or scream and yell. Or I used to go stand in the ocean up to my chest and scream out to sea. Say, Mother Sea, take this. I don't need this. This is poison in my body. And I would scream and scream and scream and flail and thrash, and then I would go till it was done. And then all of a sudden I would just be flooded with peace. And even the projection was gone about angry at Bill or Sue, but it wasn't even in my body. It was gone because I had transmuted it into love. And I turn around just almost in bliss, just a total equanimity. People on the beach be looking at me because they couldn't hear anything. Just see the arms flailing in the sky and this freezing water up to his chest. So it's writing and burning and screaming. You can throw a little conniption on your bed and punch the pillows. And sometimes certain devotees, I give them a big steel pipe in a cardboard box and send them out in the backyard and say, beat the living daylights out of the box. And just take that energy and just get it out of your body. It's poison. But you can never take it out on people or animals or children, and you shouldn't be taking it out on yourself. And then, of course, there's Another powerful tool to get to peace is to go into service. That's one of the highest means of transcending all non-loving experiences, is to go into serving someone. Go serve someone. And if you want to get the greatest, the maximum return on investment, serve the last person on earth you ever wanted to serve. The person you might despise or be most repulsed by. Go cook dinner for the person's family. Go wash the person's car. And do it with love. Because the consciousness you're in when you create is what you create. If two people make the same sandwich and one's angry and one's in love, one person made a poison sandwich and one made a sandwich of love. So do it with the wholeness of your being, and that will act like a poultice and pull the poison out of you. And then there are sacred breathing techniques, pranayama, which we might be doing at the retreat this weekend, but I teach that too. Human beings even breathe in separation. Human beings mostly take little tiny gasps of air into the back of the mouth and the top of the throat. They just breathe in fear. Or you see people breathing, or a deep pranic breath that goes way down inside, long and slow and deep. And I'm exaggerating it so people can see it, but just, if you did 10 or 20 of those, you'd probably be in peace. You do 15 to 30 minutes of that, and you're going to be on top of Mount Olympus if you're doing it properly. I mean, there are ways to teach people how to do it, and there are many different types of sacred breathing techniques. But the thing is, you transcend the fear breath, and you go into a deep, integrated, divine breath that's rooted in your true essence as God, and then the light comes rushing in, the non-loving vibration goes away, gets transmuted, and all of a sudden you start swelling. The truth of who you are comes to the surface, and the illusion of who you are doesn't disappear, it actually gets transmuted and it's gone. So again, you start doing those more and more and more and more. More constructive expression of the non-loving energy, more writing and burning, more serving, more sacred breathing, meditating, silence, being on nature, going into service, and you have more and more peace, more and more bliss, and then you have less and less of those experiences, because every time you do that, that peace, here's the interesting part of how it's alchemical. When you do something like this, when that experience happens that I described, the transcendence, it's permanent. Whereas suppression is temporary. Or people kvetch and whine and moan. Complaining about distress creates more distress. Avoiding pain creates pain. Suppressing pain creates pain. Because everything, that which you resist, not only persists, but intensifies. Why? Because in victim consciousness and fear, people avoid the lesson. They ask for circumstance to come to teach them how to become greater love, whether it's greater mercy, compassion, patience, tolerance, forgiveness, acceptance, detachment, desirelessness, selflessness, all the many aspects of godliness, of pure love. And then when they stay in fear and victim consciousness, they refuse the circumstance, they reject the lesson, they reject the gift. Therefore, the universe, God, your soul, whatever you want to call it, says, must not have heard. I guess I'll send it again, and this time I'll send it louder. To honor you, saying, you asked for this, so maybe I just need to turn up the volume. So whatever you resist, whatever truth you resist, persists and intensifies. So the universe sends it again, bigger. And then people say, no, my life's getting even worse. No, you're just being more willful and resistant. Therefore, you need to suffer more to wear that resistance down. When you just surrender, water can only flow through a pipe one way at a time. That's simple law of physics. So if you're the pipe, the conduit from you to God, and all your energy is fighting and resisting and anger and projection, then how can God get to you? When you just turn off that flow and say, go into the peace, say, okay, I am love, I receive love. Show me, God, tell me, show me. Rather than make it go away, people need to change the mission statement to, help me to understand. Help me to understand. Why did I create this? What is this here? What is it teaching me? Most people want to sit and spend their whole life bashing in their minds about what happened. The what is pointless. It already happened. That's a moot point. Why is the question to be asking? The great inquisition. Why? What is the gift? What is this teaching me? How am I being invited by my soul in its mastery to move into greater love? Ask for, God, show me, help me understand so that I may grow and become greater love. And then you transcend the circumstance, it lets go, and you are no longer who you were 5 minutes ago. You're now greater love, and that one won't have to happen again. And as you keep transcending more and more and more, eventually you cross that line, and now your consciousness is anchored in love, and then whew, off you go, as long as you stay in that dynamic of wanting to constantly become greater love and not become complacent, that, oh, look, I've arrived. There are even many masters, many living masters, enlightened beings, who will never reach the zenith of their divine potential, because they too can become complacent and arrogant. I've encountered it. I've seen vanity. I've seen anger. That's, yes, it can come up, but when there's a complacency, it's that same disease can affect everyone. You know, I've often said, temptation will never leave you. The only thing that changes is you leave it. But there's constantly that voice, but eventually it just has no effect. You know, and then eventually you don't even hear it, or you might hear it, but it's just din. You know, it's almost cute. That's so cute. It used to bother me so many years ago. Then you have compassion for it, so it increases you again. It's fascinating.
We've touched on the coming age. You called it the age of Aquarius. You know, you've spoken as if it's a fact, so I was hoping maybe you could illuminate a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, we're moving into this age of people all remembering who they are as love and becoming it. That's the long and short of it. And what's happening is this free will zone, as you call it, is getting smaller and smaller. It's dissolving. And so it's becoming more and more inconvenient and painful to use free will in non-accordance with God's laws, with love. And the more people do that, the more pain and suffering happens. So that whole zone of opposition, or the no choose zone, those are just falling away. So when people talk about, I mean, I know there's all this 2012 prophecy and all that, and I tend to stay away from that. You know, people who are waiting for 2012 will be waiting at 3012. That's victim consciousness, it's separate consciousness. You know, the train will go by and they won't even know. You know, so the past no longer exists, and the future hasn't happened yet, and is determined by the choices we make. What's important is to live right now. It doesn't mean ignore or pretend it's not there. I mean, sure, God speaks visions and revelations to us all the time, but not to get all attached and impressed and you know, affected by it. You know, God plants seeds in us. Revelations and visions are seeds God plants. You know, an apple seed knows how to become an apple tree. You don't have to tell it or teach it. So when God places a revelation in us, we're supposed to take care of it and protect it and ask God what to do, when to water it, when to fertilize it, what to do. But we don't have to make it happen. The apple seed knows how to grow a tree, and it knows how to make apples. So to get all caught up in the 2012 thing, when the calendar ends and this and that, we'll all ascend and the motherships will come and the fifth dimension will be here, and nothing's coming. Nothing is coming. Everything is here now. You know, every dimension of the entire, all 352 levels of the Godhead exist now. All dimensions exist now. So as we become more and more love, we experience more of the totality of God that is already here now. So remember, waiting is separation. So, and yes, it is true that there are certain things historically that are happening, but that just sends people right into their head, and it sends them into separateness, as far as I'm concerned. Focus on purifying all 4 levels of your creation. Purify all your thoughts into holy loving ones, and eliminate all non-loving thoughts. Purify all your words. Speak only love, or don't speak at all. Purify all your feelings into loving ones, and purify all your actions. And you will have the greatest impact on the planet, rather than some mythical such and such that's going to happen in 2012. You're the 2012. You're the 2012. I'm the 2012. It's all up. Everyone needs to adopt, it's all up to me. I'm the only one on the planet, and it's all up to me. I have to adopt that it's all up to me. The power of one. Gandhi proved it, Jesus proved it, Mother Teresa proved it, and countless others who proved it. That's what's important, not what's coming in 2012.
Walk the streets of forgotten song. How could it be right when it feels so wrong? All depends on how you feel. It may be a dream now, or it may be real. You know it's real. Don't know where I'm going from where I've been, but I've got this feeling from within, and I know my life is born again. I feel your love and I feel your love.